They say that there are so many creepy things in our world that we don't know about. It is scary to even think about. But when it comes to ghosts, there are some encounters that can make your blood run cold. These stories are from people just like you who have had their own ghostly encounters. Some of them were so scared they ran away, while others stayed to face the specter. And as for the outcome, well, let's just say these encounters left them with scars that will never fade. So brace yourself and get ready for the scariest ghost stories that will keep you up at night. Number 10. The Hitchhiker Who Turned Out to Be a Ghost. A man was driving along an isolated country road late at night when he saw a young woman standing by the side of the road. She was wearing clothes from the 1950s and didn't seem to notice the cars passing her by. He stopped his car and offered her a ride. She got into the car and sat down without saying a word. The driver continued on his way and soon realized that the girl wasn't in the passenger seat. At first he thought it was a dream, but then he looked in the rearview mirror and saw her sitting there, right where she had been. He slammed on the brakes and turned around, but when he got back to where he had picked her up, she was gone. Number 9. The Ghostly Apparition in the Forest. A woman was walking through the woods when she suddenly came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a log cabin, which she found strange since she had never seen it before. As she got closer, she heard what sounded like chains dragging metal moans. She ran as fast as she could, tripping over roots and rocks, but couldn't get out of there fast enough. When she finally made it to her car and turned around, she saw the cabin again, right where she had seen it before. But this time it was closer and it seemed to be floating in the air. She screamed and floored it, backing away slowly until the cabin and the sound were both out of sight. She hasn't been back to the woods since. Number 8. The Ghost of the Train Depot. A man was working as a night watchman at a train depot when he heard what sounded like footsteps above him. He assumed it was a mouse, but then he saw the distinct outline of a man walking on the floor above him. He called out to the man and asked him to identify himself, but the ghost ignored him and continued walking. Then he vanished. The next night he brought a gun to work, convinced that he would find the ghost again. And sure enough, there it was, the same exact outline walking across the floor. This time the ghost looked back at him and beckoned with his finger for the man to follow him. Though he was scared, the man grabbed his hat and followed the ghost out into the night. He never saw the ghost again, but he did find a skeleton on the train tracks the following morning. Could the ghost have been trying to warn him, or was he simply a lost soul seeking company? Number 7. The Haunting Lullaby. A woman was putting her newborn baby boy to sleep when she heard a knock at the door. She went to investigate, but when she opened the door, no one was there. The knock came again, louder this time, and she felt a cold breeze sweep through the house. She returned to the nursery and tried to calm her baby, but the knocking grew louder and more insistent. And then she heard a woman's voice singing a hauntingly beautiful lullaby. She tried to ignore it, but the voice kept getting louder, and she could feel the presence of the ghost growing stronger. Finally, she made the decision to leave the house and go for a walk. As she walked away from her home, the lullaby became softer and softer until she could no longer hear it. When she returned home, she found that the baby was safe and sound in the crib, but she never forgot the eerie lullaby or the feeling of dread that had come with it. Number 6. The Specter in the Attic. A family moved into an old farmhouse and soon began to experience strange and terrifying phenomena. Doors would slam shut, objects would move on their own, and they would hear disembodied footsteps in the attic. One day, the family decided to confront whatever was haunting their home. They gathered in the attic and waited, and soon enough they heard the footsteps again. Then they saw the ghost of a woman in a Victorian nightgown standing at the top of the stairs. She looked down at them and beckoned with her finger. Then she disappeared. The family followed her into the night and found a small, intricately carved wooden box in the dirt. When they opened it, they found a diary and a ring. The diary belonged to the ghost and told the story of a woman who had lived in the farmhouse in the early 1900s. The family returned the ring to the attic, and the ghost has never returned since. Number 5. The Ghost Ship. A sailor told a chilling tale of encountering a ghost ship out in the middle of the ocean. He was part of a crew that had been sailing for months when they suddenly spotted a ship on the horizon. As they got closer, they realized that the ship was not moving and had no lights or signs of life. They approached cautiously, and as they drew nearer, they could make out the outlines of men on the deck. They called out to them, but received no reply, and as they got even closer, they could see that the men were skeletons. They eventually realized that the ship was a ghost, doomed to sail the seas for eternity. Number 4. The Ghostly Visitation. A nun was tending to her duties in a monastery when she suddenly felt a cold spot in the air. She looked around, but everything seemed normal. However, she could still feel the cold spot, and it was getting colder by the second. Suddenly, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching her, and when she turned around, she saw the ghost of an emaciated old man. He was wrapped in a brown robe, and his face was covered in sores. He reached out a skeletal finger and pointed to a corner of the room. Then he vanished. The nun cautiously approached the spot where the ghost had indicated and discovered a hidden compartment in the wall. Inside, she found a small wooden box, and when she opened it, she found a human skull. Number 3. The Ghost in the Mirror. A woman was getting ready for bed when she noticed something strange in the mirror. She saw the reflection of a man standing behind her, and when she turned around, he was gone. She dismissed it as a trick of the light, but the next night she saw him again. This time he was closer, and he was staring directly at her. She screamed and ran out of the room, and she never looked in the mirror again. Number 2. The Ghost of Captain Morris. A lighthouse keeper was working his shift when he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps in the tower. He assumed it was the wind, but then he saw the ghost of a man in a naval uniform approaching him. The ghost introduced himself as Captain Morris, the former keeper of the lighthouse, and explained that he had died in a storm years ago. He told the new keeper that he was there to warn him of an impending disaster. The ghost disappeared after giving him a cryptic message. The next day, the keeper contacted the Coast Guard and warned them of a brewing storm. He was ridiculed, but he insisted that he was serious. The storm hit that night and destroyed several boats. The keeper was hailed as a hero for saving the lives of the sailors, all because he listened to the warning of a ghost. Number 1. The Phantom Hitchhiker. A man was driving along a deserted highway when he suddenly felt a cold spot in the car. He shrugged it off, but then he saw the ghost of a young woman in the passenger seat. She was wearing clothes from the 1950s and had a suitcase beside her. The man continued driving and soon realized that the ghost was not sitting in the passenger seat. At first, he thought it was a dream, but then he looked in the rearview mirror and saw her sitting there just where she had been before. He slammed on the brakes and turned around, but when he got back to where he had picked her up, she was gone. These stories may be fictional, but they certainly are creepy. If you enjoyed these ghost stories, be sure to check out our other videos for more tales of the paranormal. And if you want to share your own spooky experiences, be sure to comment below. We might even feature your story in a future video. Thanks for watching, and happy haunting.